Say, you know what TV's Frank and I have been getting into lately? Voodoo, yes. It's a safe, economical way to inflict evil on the world.
And it's fun, too.
There's a door to the mystical. And you just walk through it.
Somebody brought him back from the grave. And I want to know how they did it.
Death is not the end.
I'll take your soul.
Hello, everybody. It's episode 51 of 13 o'clock.
Man, 51.
I know, right?
Okay, what is it today? What's the show?
Today we're talking about zombies. Voodoo. Real zombies.
Okay, so the historical stuff, like all the Haitian zombies.
Because I always thought that, like, I love modern zombie stuff too, but I always kind of like the old school folkloric zombies.
Okay.
So I kind of wanted to do a show about that. But before we get to that, let's do our regular announcements.
Okay, yeah, announcements. Go ahead.
Okay, so since you guys know, the audio podcast has been moved. You can still get it on WordPress at 13 o'clock podcast. And you can also, it should be available on iTunes now. And I'll put the link in the description because I just recently got the new link to where it is. So you should be able to download it from there and it should be fine. Or like I said, if you go to archive.org, we have a page on there called 13 o'clock podcast, and you can just download the audio directly from there if you want. And, you know, like I said, the YouTube show is exactly the same. It's not moving anywhere. So it's just the audio podcast that has been moved. But, you know, you guys will be able to find it. It's not that hard to find. So let's see. What else?
You did a show recently, didn't you?
Yes. Yesterday I recorded a show with a podcast called See You on the Other Side. And that actually will probably be out today.
Yeah, what was it about?
Well, we talked about poltergeist mostly, but I talked a little bit about my horror fiction, just talked about just general paranormal stuff and horror stuff. It was a fun show.
Okay.
It was a really fun show to do, so make sure to check that out. And what else? Spooky Empire will be coming up at the end of October. It is the last weekend in October before Halloween. It's the 27th, 28th, and 29th. And we will be there.
Orlando. Yeah.
In Orlando. I think it's at the Orange County Convention Center. That's usually where it is. It will be on several of the panels, including Sick and Twisted and a bunch of the other ones over the weekend. We'll be there all 3 days, Friday night, Saturday, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. Yeah. And we'll be there with all our books, and, you know, we'll be there to sign stuff and have swag and all kind of neat stuff like that. So if you're in the Orlando area the weekend before Halloween, then make sure to drop by and say hello to us.
Yeah.
We would like that very much.
Yep. Don't forget 13 o'clock in minutes. Please subscribe to that one. That's our little list channel.
Little list channel, yeah.
Yeah, it's going good.
Yeah. And hopefully I'll be able to put up another one this week sometime. We'll see how that goes. Maybe the end of this week I can get another one put up.
We also picked up another patron. There's a big patron, too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like top tier.
Yeah.
Do you remember her name?
Lindsay.
Lindsay, okay.
So thank you very much,
Thanks,
Lindsay.
Yeah.
Yay, hooray.
We'll be sending you some cool merch soon.
Yeah. Yeah, for those in the $10 and up tier, we're going to do a Google Hangout. Probably be the last weekend of August.
Yeah.
And I'll get with the people that are in those tiers, and we'll figure out the best time to do it.
Yeah, so we'll get to hang out.
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
All right.
And let's see, other than that, just wanted to plug my blog again, goddessofhellfire.com. I've been writing some new horror reviews and stuff like that on there. If you're into horror movies and stuff, you can go read all of that. And
you know what's funny is that Goddess of Hellfire has its own following, actually.
It does, yeah.
Following of its own.
Well, like I said, it's more, I mean, I post stuff about the podcast on there, and I post some paranormal stuff and, you know, just stuff about my writing in general. Yeah. But, you know, I think the anchor of it is really all the horror movie reviews, and I do other things too, just, you know, horror stuff in general, like my favorite, like what I think are the scariest horror scenes in movies and why they're scary and stuff like that. So, you know, there's a lot of that kind of stuff on there too. So, you know, if you're into that, go check it out. I thought this is good too, because this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about Haitian zombies, is because now we love modern zombies. I love The Walking Dead. Okay. I'm a big fan. I love George Romero's movies.
Yeah.
And we've actually seen some pretty decent zombie movies recently. What was that? It was Korean, right?
Yeah, the Korean zombie movie. What was that called?
Train to Busan.
Train to Busan, yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah,
It's
really good.
Basically zombies on a train.
Yeah.
But it was actually really cleverly done. The characterization was really good. It's
the Koreans got it.
I actually was afraid for the characters. I was like, oh my god, I was like wigging out about it.
They took a lot of the best elements from the Walking Dead series and put it in a standalone movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. The zombies were not really the Walking Dead style zombies. They were more like that, the plague victim. They were, fast.
They were
zombies.
fast, yeah.
Fast zombies. But still, it was cool. Really
cool. It was a really good movie. I highly recommend it. It's probably one of the best zombie movies I've seen in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and it's in Korean.
Yeah. But it's on Netflix. I think it still is. So I like that stuff. I'm not shitting on that. But, the modern perception of the zombie as a reanimated corpse that eats people, I mean, that mostly stems from Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, that's kind of the first... They were ghouls, really. And
they were never called zombies.
They didn't call them zombies in that movie. They called them ghouls.
Yeah, Romero never saw them as a zombie.
Which is technically what that is. He just a reanimated corpse that eats people. That's a ghoul, right?
It's a ghoul.
Or it's somebody that eats corpses.
Yeah.
Like a living person. Yeah. So this is what I thought was really interesting I wanted to plug a couple of my short stories because I've written 2 zombie short stories. Now, the thing about me, if you haven't read any of my fiction, is that I don't like to write about kind of your standard monsters, werewolves, vampires, and stuff. I have, but if I do it, then I always want to put some kind of spin on it or go back to the old school type of thing, you know what I mean? So the only 2 zombie stories I ever wrote, one of them, it's called Understanding the Reanimated, and it was in my collection Associated Villainies, which came out in 2011. And I posited in that story that Romero zombies were real, and also that Haitian zombies were real. And the main character was like an anthropologist or like a researcher who was trying to discover why zombies had gone from these sugar plantation slaves to flesh-eating ghouls. Okay. Like I said, so positing that both things were real and wondering why that change took place. And he was studying why that change took place. And the other zombie story I wrote, which was called The Schism, and it was from Hopeful Monsters, and that came out in 2009. And that one was about a religious cult in the United States of like younger people and stuff like that who got so off on the idea of the Haitian zombie thing and like taking the zombie powder and coming back to life that they were almost kind of like had built a cult around this sort of resurrection, this constant rebirth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like I said, I've always been kind of more interested in the old school type zombies. So that's why I wanted to do this show about this. Now, most of you, I would think, if you're into horror, have probably seen the movie The Serpent and the Rainbow. And that came out in 88, I want to say. Bill Pullman was in it. And it's kind of like a polarizing movie. Like a lot of people...
I think it was before that.
It might have been.
Because I was in high school, I think, when I saw it.
Yeah, the book came out in 84 or 85.
I graduated in 87.
So yeah, it might have been like...
I think it was...
It might have been like 80. So like
Maybe
I've got the
then,
Wikipedia page open right here. 88, I was right.
88? Okay.
Yeah, see, I told you.
All right, so it's right after I got out of high school. Then.
Yeah. I was still in high school then. It was very, very loosely based on the book by Wade Davis, which was a nonfiction book.
Right.
Now, Wade Davis is an anthropologist and an ethnobotanist, meaning that he studies how cultures and plants interact with us medicinally or as drugs or whatever. Now, the reason that he came to write this book was because of a famous case that occurred it actually started in 1962, but they didn't find out about it until 1980. In 1980, there was a woman named Angelina Narcisse, and she was in her town in Haiti, and she was in the marketplace. And she sees this man walking toward her, and he looks kind of familiar and stuff like that. And he says, "I'm your brother, Clairvius."
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "Clairvius Narcisse died in 1962.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she was kind of freaking out about it. But apparently he knew a bunch of stuff about like his childhood, like he knew his childhood nickname that nobody knew but them, and he knew all this other stuff. So they eventually did discover that this was indeed a man who had supposedly died in 1962. What ended up happening, 1962, Clairvius Narcisse, he checked himself into the Albert Schweitzer Hospital there in Haiti because he was having a fever and body aches and things like that. So he checks himself into the hospital. There are records of it. So he checks in, they give him an examination and stuff like that, and he dies. 2 doctors signed the death certificate. Both of them had been trained in America, so it wasn't kind of like, I know people will say it's like, oh, it's some, witch doctor or whatever. Yeah. No, these were both American trained doctors, and they both declared him dead. The day after that, he was buried. Now, when they're talking to Clairvius now, he says, I was completely lucid the whole time. He's like, I heard them pronounce me dead. I felt them pull the sheet up over my face. I felt them put me in the ground. And there was nothing I could do about it. He's like, I was paralyzed.
Wow.
So he could still see everything. He could still hear everything.
Man, when I was a kid, I had these morbid fears of being buried alive. Could you imagine what that'd be like, being buried alive?
That is a very common fear.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can't remember who wrote it at the moment, but there was a book, I have it somewhere, I think it's up in the attic, but it's called Buried Alive. Yeah. And it's kind of a history of people's fears about it, and like all the stuff they used to build, like all that shit, like where they had like bells and stuff coming out of the earth. And tubes that you could yell out there just in case.
Now they buried him alive. How is it he didn't suffocate? Because
the day after he was buried, the bokor, the sorcerer, he comes back and digs the guy up. But
there wasn't a day's worth of air in the coffin, was there?
Well, see, I don't think they don't bury them very deep. It's not like here where they bury them and there's like a layer of cement, or it's like, I don't think they bury them very deep, and the boxes are just kind of...
So there's a way to get enough oxygen?
I would imagine.
Either that or your metabolism is slowed down to the point to where you're not breathing
very much? It may be. But usually...
You can suffer all kinds of brain damage.
Some of them do.
All right.
It does happen because of oxygen deprivation.
Right.
But yeah, so he said that the next day, a guy came and dug him up, and then he was enslaved on a sugar plantation for 2 years, after which the bokor died and he escaped. Now, you might be asking, well, why didn't he return to his family for 16 years?
Right.
The reason, according to him, is that, now, you might feel bad for Clairvius Narcisse. I mean, this is a horrible, horrible thing to happen, but evidently he believed that it was his brother that engineered him getting poisoned and enslaved.
Okay.
So he was waiting for his brother to die before he came back.
So he thought his brother put the sorcerer up to it.
Yeah. They don't know, like, I don't know if there's any proof of that exactly, but that's what he believed. So so he said, well, I waited for my brother to die before I came back to contact the rest of my family because I thought he was responsible for it.
All right.
I don't know what he was doing for those ensuing 16 years. He was just wandering around. So... Because, I mean, okay, for a long time, there had been these kind of, all this folklore and urban legends and stuff like that about zombies in Haiti. It's a very common urban legend there. But until Clairvius Narcisse came along and they were actually able to prove that, yes, this was the man that died in 1962 and here he is alive again, it's the same dude, people in the United States started to get interested in the case. Now, one of the people that got interested in the case was a doctor named Nathan Klein. And at the time, he had a graduate student named Wade Davis, who was studying anthropology and ethnobotany. Now, Nathan Klein, he was like, okay, now, if this zombie thing is real, then it has to be engendered through some kind of drug.
Right.
And it's like, if we could figure out what this compound is, maybe we could use it like as an anesthetic or something like that. We could use it for medicinal purposes because they didn't know what was in it.
Mm-hmm. Zombie powder.
Yeah. So they basically were like, well, it has to be something like that. So he sent Wade Davis down to Haiti to study and try and figure out what this was. Now, this was the early 80s. So Wade Davis went down there. He was eventually able to obtain 8 different samples from 4 different areas of this zombie powder. Now, none of them had the exact same ingredients.
She's so good, she doesn't follow any recipes. A pinch here, a pinch there, he's a zombie, who cares?
But most of them had real similar ingredients. They said almost 7 out of 8 of them had dried pufferfish.
Yeah.
Which, of course, contains tetrodotoxin, which causes paralysis.
Right.
They all contained ground human bones. Usually, one preparation he saw prepared, he said that the guy crushed a baby skull and put it in there.
All right.
Several of them also had the stuff off like a marine toad,
Right.
which was some kind of weird, gross substance. Not poisonous exactly, but
Right.
And most of them also had either ground glass or some kind of like irritating plant, like itching pea or something like that.
I wonder why.
Because this is why. Most of them had ground glass or tarantula hairs or things like that
in
in
your
it.
blood system.
Yeah, because if they blew it on you or got it on your skin, it would make you scratch,
Right.
thereby having open wounds, and it would get into your bloodstream.
Right.
So he brings these samples back, and like I said, he wrote the book, The Serpent and the Rainbow, about his experiences there. He actually wrote another book too, in 1988 that was kind of about the same thing. But so he brought it back. They put the preparations on some shaved rats and things like that, and it caused the rats to get paralyzed for a little while, but then they woke up and they were all right, like they recovered. Now, what he didn't obtain a sample of, and I don't think anyone, as far as I know, I don't think anyone has obtained a sample, but this is what they feel like is probably happening. Now, the zombie powder is not used to keep the people enslaved, That's only used for the death and resurrection portion.
Okay.
To keep the people enslaved, they think that there's another compound. They take sweet potatoes, they make a paste out of it, and then they mix in datura, which is a plant which has atropine and scopolamine in it. And if you remember, we did a show about that, what's it called? The devil's breath or whatever. It's like, it's like the angel's trumpet is also called that kind of plant. That has the same kind of thing. And that causes, amnesia, pliability, things of that nature. And it's also thought that, the bokors that have these zombies on their plantations, working on their plantations, that they also feed, they kind of feed them the datura all the time, which kind of makes them lose their memory and lose their identity and things like that. But they also feed them a diet with no salt in it, which makes them weak and kind of, not... Which is actually pretty clever, because that does happen if you don't, because you need salt, you need a lot of salt, and you brought it to maintain your muscles and your brain function and stuff like that. So if they feed you a low salt diet, it weakens you and makes you like less likely to run off. Now, the interesting thing too, and I think, I'm not sure how widespread this perception is. I feel like people would be like, well, isn't it kind of a lot of trouble to make zombies just to like work on your plantation? You know what I mean? Especially because there's a lot of unemployment in Haiti. It's like, it should be easy to like find people to work on your sugar plantation. Well, it's because they don't make zombies as slaves.
Okay.
Really, not from an economic standpoint.
All right.
They make zombies because it's a punishment.
I got you.
So it's kind of a way of keeping people in line and keeping people people that break society's rules and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. This is seen as like the ultimate punishment. Right. Because... So
if somebody's messing with you, you can hire a bokor to go turn them into a zombie. Right.
Because you have to imagine, Haiti, which was occupied by the French, they had slaves to work on the sugar plantations. Yeah. When the Haitian Revolution came in 1804 and the French were driven out, slavery was abolished and things like that, but the memory of it was still very fresh. Right. After the Haitian Revolution, they had beliefs in zombies before, because obviously the slaves had been brought over from West Africa and they had a similar type of belief system there, and they brought that with them. So they'd always had that legend about zombies. But after the Haitian Revolution, the zombie thing kind of exploded because the memory of slavery was so fresh, and they thought, well, that would be that would be worse than death. Mm-hmm. Being dead and then coming back and being enslaved, because they did believe that the bokors had the power to bring the dead back to life and enslave you, and you would just be at their beck and call forever.
Yeah, so it's like a scary idea.
Yeah. So that's why, and I think that's why like a lot of the bokors got away, because most of the regular people didn't know that they just engendered it through a drug. Right.
They thought it was magic. Of course.
Yeah, they thought it was magic because
science is magic.
Really, yeah.
Magic is just science. Science is just magic that works.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why, like I said, that's why Clairvius Narcisse, he thinks, was zombified, because apparently, according to some of his family members, he wasn't really the nicest guy.
Right, yeah.
I guess he had sort of burned a lot of bridges with his family members. He was supposed to share part of his land with his brother, and his brother had a family to support, and evidently he wanted to keep all the land for himself.
Right.
And in Haiti, I mean, where agriculture is like a huge part of their economy, they take land rights pretty seriously.
Yeah, so is vengeance.
Yeah. So the fact that
among family
members. So the fact that Clairvius Narcisse, and like I said, he kind of seemed like a scumbag in other ways. Like he went around knocking up women and not supporting the children and things like that. So he wasn't super well liked. So it kind of came to pass that his brother got pissed off at him, hired a bokor to poison him and then bring him back from the dead, quote unquote. And that's how that went. Actually, tell you what, let's take a break right now and we'll just throw a couple little short commercials in there.
Okay.
And then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about
zombies. All right.
Be back in just a minute. Hey, 13 O'Clock fans. Love the show but don't have an hour to spare? Check out our new list channel, 13 O'Clock in Minutes. All the fun, creepy topics of the main podcast, but in easy-to-swallow, bite-sized pieces. Links in the description. More videos to come soon. Okay, so...
Did the zombie powder actually work?
See, there's kind of a lot of controversy about this. Now, you have to think, if the zombie phenomena is real, if people are actually getting buried and being brought back and being enslaved, and like I said, Clairvius Narcisse was not the only person that has claimed this.
All right.
Many, many, many other people in Haiti have claimed that this has happened to them. His was just the most documented case because they had records of his death and they had all these, they had all these other things. And he knew a lot about his childhood and stuff like that, which a faker wouldn't have known.
But there are some Western people that don't believe this.
Yeah, well, there was some controversy arose because the samples that Wade Davis brought back, like I said, apparently they did test some of them on rats, and it did make the rats, go into paralysis, and then they came back and recovered and stuff like that. However, when other labs tried to test the powder, they said that most of them had little to no trace of tetrodotoxin in them. Now, Wade Davis says, well, maybe that might have been because, one, all the preparations of the formula were different because he got them from different sorcerers and they all had their own little recipes or whatever. He's like, also, the solution that you put them in to test them might have destroyed
it.
Some of the, some of the
maybe
drug.
Maybe it's got a real short half-life. Maybe it gets weak quickly or something.
Yeah, or something like that. That's kind of what he was arguing.
Right.
Since it couldn't really be replicated, as far as I know, so some people thought that maybe it was bullshit. That maybe every single case of people coming back and saying, hey, I got zombified was just, people's mistaken identity or, whatever. But I don't know. It does seem like it's so widespread there and there are so many people claiming that this happened to them, and they say the same things. They say, I could hear and feel everything that was going on when I got pronounced dead and when I got buried and things like that. So it would seem that if those things did happen the way they were described, then it would have to be something like that. Because that drug from the pufferfish, it does have that effect.
All right.
I mean, like I said, it's just like the fugu fish in Japan that, like, you know, people eat and they have to prepare it a certain way, otherwise it makes you paralyzed and it'll kill you.
So why were some people skeptical?
Well,
maybe they just hating on it. Were they just hating on it?
Well, I'm not really sure. Well, you know, it's science. You have to be skeptical. Okay. Especially if it's something so seemingly fantastic as zombies. But like I said, Wade Davis was not claiming that the bokors were bringing people back from the dead.
No, it just looked like it.
Yeah, he was just saying that
kind
they
of
were
a magic trick.
Yeah, that they were doing
drugs.
like a faking death that was good enough to fool doctors. Yeah. And then bringing the guy back and feeding them a drug that made them pliant. Okay. That's basically what he was saying, which is not a crazy thing because there are drugs that do that type of shit. So the thing is, okay, so later on, Wade Davis agreed to sell the book to Hollywood. You know, he knew it was going to be a horror movie.
Okay.
But, you know, he wasn't...
So this ended up being Serpent in the Rainbow?
Yeah. Well, that was the name of the book.
Okay.
Well, the thing...
Actually, I didn't like the movie. I didn't remember, from what I remembered, I thought...
I liked it, but
it was pretty corny.
I haven't seen it for a long time.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time either.
I liked it at the time. Now...
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Pretty much they changed everyone's names. Mm-hmm. But the main character that was in it, that was played by Bill Pullman, he was an anthropologist and an ethnobiologist, but he wasn't named Wade Davis. He was named something else. He was named Alan something. And he goes down to Haiti to get the zombie powder and stuff like that. But I feel like, I'm not really sure, and like I said, I haven't seen it in a while. I'm not really sure if the movie posits that there really is like some supernatural shit going on, or if Bill Pullman's character just is like suffering under the effects of these drugs.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
Because in the movie, he gets drugged by like the bokor and stuff and gets buried alive and stuff like that. And there's that very famous scene where he's like, "Don't bury me, I'm not dead," and stuff like that. Now, Wade Davis obviously did not try any of the zombie powder himself, wisely. And so that part is not true. And there was also a bunch of stuff about, I think like the bokor like was haunting his dreams and like beheaded somebody and shit like that.
On the silver screen, zombies traditionally were kind of portrayed like this up until George Romero's movie.
Up until George Romero, yeah.
Because,
really,
Bela Lugosi had one called White Zombie, and that involved powders and
there were like some short silent films that were kind of about zombies. I think the first one was in 1919.
So how did they know back then? I guess the rumors of zombie powder had made it into the United States.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody had proof.
Yeah.
Nobody had proof.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's kind of how people got interested in it at the time. But I think there was U.S. military that were stationed in Haiti, kind of in the early 20th century.
And they knew about it.
And they sent back, well, a lot of their shit was exaggerated.
Right.
Like in the early 20th century, there was like a really lot of kind of pulp novels that were based off like all these scary, you know, zombie witch doctors, and they had all these preparations, and they could hypnotize people to do their bidding and all this other kind of stuff. So, like I said, it was exaggerated, but that was where the American perception came from.
Okay.
And like I said, 1919, I think, was the first short silent film that was based on that type of thing. White Zombie with Bela Lugosi was actually the first full-length zombie movie. The best thing about White Zombie is that Bela Lugosi's character is named Murder Legendre. I'm like, that is awesome. I wish that was my fucking name. But yeah, so Bela Lugosi plays basically a bokor who kind of uses his little magic powers to like hypnotize. And then there was another one called I Walked with a Zombie. That came out in 1943, I think. And that was Jacques Tourneur and Val Lewton, who also made Cat People, which is a really fucking awesome
I just think it's weird that Night of the Living Dead has become the definitive zombie movie when that really wasn't about zombies. It wasn't originally intended to be about zombies. When I see Night of the Living Dead, it kind of reminds me of Last Man on Earth, which is more about vampires.
Yeah, those were kind of vampires, weren't they?
Yeah, you had Last Man on Earth, that got spun into Omega Man.
Yeah.
Which got spun into I Am Legend.
Yeah, which was what the original book was called.
The original call, yeah.
I can't remember.
It was kind of like a zombie movie, but it was
kind of.
It was about vampires. In the Heston movie, the vampires were kind of spun into mutants.
Yeah.
And then we were watching that new series last night, which kind of reminded me of
Van Helsing. It was a sci-fi series. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like Last Man on Earth or Omega Man.
It kind of is, yeah. I didn't really realize it at the time because it's very similar to Walking Dead too, because it's kind of like a few survivors.
Well, it's definitely their take on. They needed a Walking Dead, so that's what they did.
Yeah,
they did Van
They
Helsing.
just did vampires,
and it's kind of like Last Man on Earth, but it's not. It's not about one man. It's about a group.
Yeah, it's about a group. So in that sense, it's more like yeah. And actually, I don't know if I'd recommend it. It's okay. Like we just kind of.
It's not bad.
Yeah, we just kind of came across it.
Yeah.
I liked the central conceit, even though, I mean, it posits that there have always been these vampires, but that they were able to take over the earth because there was like a huge, volcanic eruption or something like that, and so it made the skies go dark, so the vampires could come out in the day. They didn't have to like creep around in the shadows and at night all the time. So it's kind of similar to like 30 Days of Night, where the vampires go up to the Arctic Circle where it's like dark for 6 months and stuff like that, which I thought was a really good idea. And then there's kind of a whole thing about, aren't there like dumb ones and smart ones? Because some of them can like talk. They're just like people.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Omega Man.
And then some of them are like feral.
Out of them all, I'd take Omega Man. I love that movie.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
I kind of like the Last Man on Earth though, the Vincent Price one.
It was good too, but I think Omega Man beat it.
I did not like the Will Smith one. I Am Legend, not at all.
No, terrible.
It seems to me, and like I said, I haven't read the Richard Matheson novel in a long time, but I perceived that the Vincent Price one was closest to the book.
Yeah. Although it's hard to choose between Omega Man and Night of the Living Dead. They're similar premise, but very different. Man, I think I'd still take Omega Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would. Matthias and the cult living down inside
I'm just kidding.
I like
But
that.
I'm kind of, this is like I said, and this is why I kind of ended up writing a story about it. And I don't know if writing the story really kind of gave me any new insight into it, but why? Why did that happen? Like, why did the zombie mythos that came from Haiti, how did that morph into what it is now? Like,
well, Night of the Living Dead, that broke the ground with the genre.
Well, yeah, because
but
it seems like...
they were ghouls, and somebody somewhere along the line called those zombies. Yeah. It's never mentioned in any of the... in the movie.
No, he doesn't mention it.
It's never mentioned.
And they only really briefly mentioned how it happened. It was just space radiation.
Space radiation
that brought them back.
Well, they don't. They never say. They never definitively say. They say, "Does this space radiation?"
Yeah, they're like, "Well, that could be it."
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, which I don't know. I guess that's a good thing, but it just seems weird that it's become so.
Now, as the Night of the Living Dead series unfolded, became Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead. I don't remember if they ended up calling them zombies in any of those. Did they? This is another weird thing, and The Walking Dead is like the worst culprit for this. It seems like, I mean, I haven't seen every zombie movie or zombie show ever, ever made, but they don't call them zombies, even though in real life that's immediately what you would call them. Zombies are the only thing that don't exist in the Dawn of the in the
and that's
Walking
very
Dead
weird to me.
That word doesn't seem to exist.
Yeah, that's very weird to me because it, in a way, it kind of chips away at the realism because you know that if something like that happened in real life, everybody would call them that. Yeah. In fact, some of the quote unquote zombie movies they've made lately, not lately, but in the past 20 years or so. Like 28 Days Later, those got called zombies, even though technically they're not zombies because they're not dead people. Okay. They're just infected people. Right. So if you had to call them infected people and not zombies, then fine. Yeah. But Walking Dead, that was one of the things that always kind of weirded me out, but it's like, we're calling them walkers or whatever. What is
Biters.
That? Biters. That kind of Who the fuck would call them that? Nobody. Everybody would call them everybody on Earth would call them zombies. They do call them the dead, though. Yeah, which, that's fine. You would call them that. But biters? Yeah. Who would call them that? Nobody. Nobody. And it takes it out. Like I said, I love The Walking Dead, but that takes me right out of the story because that's really not what would happen. That's not what would happen. And I feel like a lot of zombie movies have that, where it's like they won't call them that for some reason. Well, that was one thing that I kind of liked about that Van Helsing show we were watching last night. That they immediately did come out and say, well, it sounds dumb, but they're vampires.
They're vampires, right.
Because they are vampires.
Right.
They're dead people that came back and they drink people's blood. They're vampires.
Now, in that Vincent Price movie, Last Man on Earth, a vampire was kind of like a zombie.
Yeah.
There wasn't a big difference.
You have to think that, I mean, the two mythological creatures are very similar.
Well, the way some of the zombies were described is basically a zombie. Excuse me. A lot of times, the way a vampire is described is a zombie, basically. Something that comes up out of the grave. It's nasty. It's got blood all over it.
And maybe that's kind of where the switch happened between the Haitian zombie, because maybe it kind of got intermingled with the vampire thing. Because initially, vampires were kind of gross.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like ghouls also.
Yeah, I think in the Romero Night of the Living Dead, the ghouls actually were conceived as primitive vampires. Yeah. That's what it was.
Well, even now, I haven't read any of Anne Rice's stuff in a long time, but didn't she have some kind of feral vampires too that weren't all, Lestat-y and rich and everything?
In the book Vampire Lestat, in the story of Lestat's genesis, when Lestat was a newly made vampire out in Europe, he tells the story where he finds a walking corpse and destroys it. He said it was a mindless walking corpse.
Yeah.
Now, you're led to believe that it was a vampire. It was a vampire, but it was very primitive.
And honestly, a lot of the folklore about vampires that comes from like Eastern Europe and stuff like that, they weren't portrayed as like really suave, or even particularly intelligent, maybe cunning. But they were almost kind of portrayed as...
They were animalistic.
Yeah. And in the original stories, they actually only went after their own family members. I don't think they just went after everybody. I think that, if I'm remembering it correctly, I think like the Eastern European legends, that's why you had to like put a stake through their heart and stuff like that, because they'd come back to their family home and try to eat everybody in there. Not so much just random people. I mean, even in Bram Stoker's original Dracula, Dracula didn't look like Bela Lugosi. No. He looked like Nosferatu.
Right.
He looked like a rat. Like he was kind of yucky and gross.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it is. Maybe there's just some kind of cross-pollination between the zombie thing and the vampire thing. Because they're both like people coming back from the dead and feasting on the living, whether drinking their blood or eating their bones.
They're all vampires. They're all vampires. And you can also say that the mutants from Omega Man were also vampires. It was just a different way.
I always kind of perceived them as vampires.
They were albinos, psychopathic albinos that couldn't stand the light. Now, they didn't drink blood.
True.
And they don't think they didn't die. They were just normal
were they
human
immortal?
beings. No. What I meant is they never died and were reborn.
Oh, right.
They're standing there, a normal person, then all of a sudden their eyes would go white, and then they were psychopaths. They'd attack you if you weren't one of them.
So, yeah. Oh, okay. So, So in that way, they were more like...
They were reborn as something else, but they never really died.
But they didn't die.
They didn't die per se. No.
Right. Okay. So in that way, kind of like, gosh, we're getting into all these. Like, I love this though. I get into like semantic discussions about what's a zombie, what's a vampire. Yeah. Well, that's kind of like.
I'm still going to say my favorite one is Omega Man. There's something about the Hest.
The Hest.
The Hest is almost like the Shat. Okay? The Hest. If the Hest comes at you, it's gravitas.
Yeah.
There's nothing like seeing Heston riding around in an abandoned L.A. in a Ford Mustang convertible with a Smith & Wesson submachine gun. And yes, Smith & Wesson did make a submachine gun. The MK760.
He knows all about it.
Yeah, I know all about it. Yeah, that's what he used. That's pretty cool. That's a cool flick.
That's pretty fun.
I want to see that movie again now.
Yeah, we should probably watch that again. Yeah. We watched Last Man on Earth just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I always kind of like that one. But you gotta love Vincent Price, man. He's awesome. But yeah, I mean, something else I find interesting too is that I think particularly in the United States, we kind of have a perception of voodoo, the religion, being bad or evil. Like, look at all the horror movies that were made about, like, The Believers and, like I said, Serpent and the Rainbow and stuff like that, where it's kind of like the entire religion is just broken down to they make zombies and they take people's souls and shit like that.
Because the United States has a heavy Protestant influence. If it's not Protestantism, it's from the devil.
It's from the devil, yeah.
From the devil. Voodoo basically is basically Catholic.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically it all is, like I said, it's West African, sort of...
It's a reboot of Catholicism.
Yeah, animist religions mixed. I mean, when the slaves were brought to Haiti and were forced to convert to Christianity, they kind of intermingled. What's that? Syncretism, right? They call that. They kind of intermingled the two things.
Yeah. And that became Santeria. It became Macumba. It became Voodoo.
Yeah. Because the whole...
different interpretations of
the whole,
it's
belief...
saints. It's the belief in saints.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing. The whole belief system of voodoo is simply that they do have, a main overarching god figure.
It's a pantheon.
But the overarching god figure does not... I mean, you can't talk to him directly.
No, but you got Jesus in there,
so
and you've got Virgin Mary, and then you've got all these little padres and saints, and then it goes down to little demon type. And nature spirits and... Well, yeah, then you have the Loa, which are like spirits, and you can ask them for stuff. And all of the Loa have Catholic saint equivalents. Yeah. So, like, you can ask them for specific things. So when they have the rituals, like to ask a particular Loa for something, like each particular Loa has their little specialty, and they have their little color that's associated with them and their foods that's associated with them. So you just have your ritual, you wear the color scarf of the Loa that you want to talk to, you give them cigarettes or whatever particular food is their thing and ask them for whatever. Yeah. So like I said, it's not a lot different than Catholicism, really. You're essentially just talking to the middlemen. It's an integral part of it in Central and South America.
Oh, yeah.
There's no difference between Catholicism and Macumba. Macumba couldn't exist without Catholicism. It's just a continuation.
Yeah, that's all. Like I said.
Okay, here's a good example. It's the expanded universe.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, it's the expanded universe. You have, Star Trek and then the expanded universe. You have Star Wars and then the expanded universe. You have Catholicism and then the expanded universe. They have to work. They work together.
Yeah,
they're part of the same thing.
And like I said,
it's just more of a folk version. The expanded version, of course, is fanfic.
Yeah,
it's fan fiction. So it's folk made.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And like I said, I always found it a lot more... I mean, Catholicism, I'm an atheist, so I don't really think any of the shit's real or anything like that. But I always thought, Catholicism, it's beautiful, all the saints and all the cathedrals. Yeah, it's very stylish. With all the candles and everything. Yeah. Love it. But, so I'm a goth, too. I love that kind of shit. But there's always something I always kind of liked about the more... voodoo themed interpretation of that, where it's like you said, it's like a folk interpretation of Catholicism, where it's like all mixed together. And I always really liked that. It's that I never really perceived it as negative, even though a lot of people seem to. But like I said, you got to think that zombie thing, that's like a teeny little part of, and like I said, that's just punishing people. Yeah. Well, it's not like a large part of their belief system.
That could also be seen as bringing justice. Doesn't necessarily.
Well, that's how they see it. I think they're like, somebody does something assholey, and they're like, "Well, I'm going to turn your ass into a zombie, bitch, and see how you like that." Right. You know what I mean? That's all it is. It's sanctions. Yeah. And like I said, it's not really a huge part of their religion, per se. It's just kind of like a little thing that sometimes they do when they're mad at you.
A lot of that stuff that it just involves an expanded universe priest. Okay, he's not really from the Catholic Church, but he's working kind of like obliquely. He recognizes the power of the Catholic Church, but when poor people need something done, maybe they don't want to go to the big church. They want to go to their little folk church. Yeah, and have him do some stuff to help them. That's just all I'm saying. It's not really the
and they don't have any conflict about that. No. To them, it's all the same.
No, and it puts on a good show. I've seen them in Brazil.
Yeah.
Candomblé shows, Macumba, which is candomblé, same thing.
Yeah, similar.
And there's going to be chicken sacrifices. But a lot of that has to do with the priest is going to eat that chicken. Yeah. Parts of it. Yeah. That's probably his payment. He's not going to do that in front of everybody else, but, Yeah.
Because that might look bad.
Yeah, they're giving packs of cigarettes to the spirits. Now, they do actually sacrifice that stuff. You'll find bowls, like a flat bowl on the sidewalk with a pack of cigarettes in it and part of a chicken wing with feathers on it and maybe some cards and a candle, and it'll stay there. In a poor country, it'll just stay there. Nobody will touch it.
Well, no one's gonna take that. Yeah. That's not for you.
No, for the spirits.
That's for the spirits.
Yeah, I never really thought it was a big deal.
You're gonna be in big trouble if you take that.
I never really thought it was a big deal because I was growing up and as a teenager in a country where that was just normal behavior. And really, I really didn't see the difference between that and Catholicism.
There isn't.
It's part of the same religion.
There isn't a difference. Well, like I said, look at Catholics that...
Although the Catholic Church would not say that that's the same religion. Well, of course they
wouldn't.
But, like I said...
But it is the same.
Like I said, a Star Wars purist is not going to accept the expanded universe. So that's not canon. It's not canon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the same shit, though.
Well, yeah, that's what I never really saw that much of a difference because... Like I said, Catholics, they do the same thing. They're making it by burning candles and incense and stuff. You're making an offering. You're asking for something in particular.
Right.
To a particular saint.
It's prayer and,
Yeah, it's the same. You're just entreating spirits. It's not weird in that sense. No. It's just, there's no difference, I don't think.
No, the Mexicans are doing that, with Santa Muerte, with the drug dealers. You know what I mean? They're giving offerings to basically... kind of like a demonic force.
So they don't get caught?
So they don't get caught, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's what... Anything, and I feel like probably, and I don't know if this is true, maybe somebody can point me to a study that shows that it's true, but I feel like people that are involved in criminal activity are probably more superstitious than most.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have shown that superstition really kind of ramps up the more... insecure your livelihood is, the more, you know what I mean? The more unsure you are of, oh, I'm going to get caught, or oh, my crops are going to fail, or something like that.
And criminal intellect is kind of graded on a curve. You know what I mean? The criminals are dumb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And kind of the dumber you are, the more you're going to believe in crazy shit.
Yeah, that's pretty much true.
I'm going to go out and do something that's really high risk. I could probably get killed, so I need to believe in this imaginary thing that'll help me.
Yeah.
Help me get away with it.
Well, and like I said, the more, they have shown that there are more superstitious beliefs in professions where there's a lot of uncertainty, like fishing or things like that. Like, people that go out and they don't know how their livelihood's going to go that season or that year. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Professional gamblers.
Yeah, so it's an attempt to gain some control over your situation when you don't really have any. It just makes you feel better. But in a self-fulfilling prophecy, sometimes it does make you do better because it makes you more confident.
Yeah.
So, it works in that way.
We're getting a little bit off topic though.
Well, that's okay. Well, actually we're almost at the end of the show, so let's close out a little bit by
we got the other topics coming up.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because we wanted to do this because we've had like a really, really lot of awesome topic requests lately.
Yeah, so tell them what's on the
Yeah, and we wanted to let you guys know when stuff was coming up, so you wouldn't think we'd forgotten about everybody. So the topics we have coming up
in this order.
We're doing EVPs, that Mario 52. Bocci, that radio, that guy,
that's
and EVPs in general. That's going to be the next one. We're doing one on Elizabeth Bathory.
After that,
we're doing a revisit of Summerwind, I think.
It's right. We have on as a guest the guy who owns what's left of Summerwind.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
he just own the blueprints to it?
Yeah.
Yes?
He's got the blueprints, yeah.
And he owns a property, I think, too, doesn't he?
Yeah, I have to ask about that. But yeah, he wanted to come on the show and kind of talk about Summerwind and the haunting and everything like that. So we're doing a revisit on that. Somebody mentioned Bill Cooper and some of doomsday predictions and stuff. So we were going to do a show about doomsday predictions in general.
We'll probably put Millerites in there too.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Okay. We wanted to do a show about that. Somebody wanted us to do a show about Anton LaVey.
Yeah, we'll do a whole Satanist show.
We'll do one of those. We're going to do a spontaneous combustion show.
Okay.
We're going to do a Norse mythology show.
Oh, that'd be good.
Somebody asked for the Wineville chicken coop murders, like a true crime.
Never heard of that one.
Yeah, I hadn't either. So I'm going to have to research that. We're going to do a show about that. We're going to do a Horrors of Mount Everest.
Okay, yeah.
Show. We got a request
Dead
for
bodies
that.
Up on the mountain.
Yeah, we got a request to do weird genetic mutations.
Okay.
Which we can do that. Now, a friend of mine wanted me to do, we talked a little bit about Goatmen on our cryptid show.
Okay.
And she was telling me that she's there are tons of different legends about different kinds of Goatmen and stuff like that. She's like, I'd love it if you just do a whole show about different goatmen and stuff. So we might do a show about that too.
Okay.
And we're going to do one on ancient Egypt and myths about ancient Egypt and stuff. Because it's similar to the Maya one, but we'll do
And we're probably going to do a Halloween special.
Yeah, we haven't decided what we're going to do for Halloween yet, but I want to do something kind of cool, like a Halloween special, because Halloween's my very favorite holiday.
So I guess that's better. Okay, if you're enjoying the show, please support the show on Patreon.
Yes, it's patreon.com/13o'clock podcast. I'll put a link in the description.
We're creeping up. I think we're almost at $40?
Yeah. Yeah.
Something like that. Okay.
Well, 45? 45.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think we are.
We're shooting for $2,500. That's a lofty goal.
$1 million.
$1 million. I mean, if you got half of that, I'd be happy.
Well, yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay.
But yeah, so please support the show on Patreon. We also still have shirts available at Zazzle.com/13 o'clock.
Yeah, we're going to start running shirt commercials because these shirts are awesome. You guys got to see them.
I know. I still got to make more. I know I say that every time, but
I'll do the voiceover for the shirt commercials.
And you'll do it all with
I'll do it all.
with your announcer voice.
Yeah, do my announcer voice. And the new shirts from 13 o'clock.
Criswell predicts.
Yes. I predict the shirt will be worn.
And like I said, if you want to listen to the audio podcast, like I said, it's been moved. I'll put a link to the iTunes in the description and a link to the blog and everything like that. And I think that'll do it for episode 51 about voodoo and zombies and all that kind of fun stuff.
It's an okay subject. Not my favorite subject, but it was okay.
Well, you had a good time.
Yeah, it's all right.
Thanks. Thanks for your vote of confidence. He's so helpful. He is so helpful. You see what I have to deal with?
All right, I'm out of here.
All right. See you guys next Tuesday. Bye. Suicide.